Let's check out some old art.
I have a funny feeling we've all seen this picture before, but in black and white. Well, this time we have it in glorious Technicolor. What is the difference between colour and Technicolor anyway? Does anybody actually know? Now this recolor, or just colour, I'm not actually sure if it's an official one. Did the original artist colour it themselves, or did someone else come along over the years and have a go at colouring it? Either way, they've done a fantastic job. We can clearly see Eldar in the picture, known nowadays as the Aeldari. But who are they battling against? Are there any clues? Who do you think they're fighting? The colour scheme of the Aeldari in the picture isn't familiar to me. I guess it could be Eandon with the yellow tones, but I'm not the greatest Eldar expert, so I can't confirm or deny that for you. I am, however, hoping there's an Eldar expert in the comments below who can tell us. One of the buildings in the background has an interesting look to it. It's leaning over almost at 45 degrees, looks a little phallic, and has what looks to be an eye slowly opening. I've not seen any buildings that look like this before or since, especially with eyes in. Now some of the weapons the Aeldari or Eldar are using look very organic, don't they? Less built and more grown. The organic weapons of the Eldar only really seem to be shown in early art, and maybe a few of the Rogue Trader era miniatures, and then they were gone.
Now back in the day, Eldar weapons, and some Chaos weapons, looked a little bit more organic than mechanical. That all seemed to stop when the Tyranids started coming out. I guess the Tyranids wanted to take the organic weapons aesthetic for themselves, and everyone else could just do one.
We return now to our evening movie, Back to the Future Part 2, Time Travel Boogaloo. So although a small picture, this one's actually quite famous, or should we say infamous. It portrays a squat holding his hoverboard. We all wanted hoverboards back in the 80s. Our squat here has a fantastic peaked hat, with what appears to be his badge collection attached to it. I'm not sure who would do such a thing. Seems like a very silly idea.
What sort of idiot would do that, huh? Oh, hold on. Got another badge here I need to add. Best husband. I wasn't going to be the first to say it. Let's put that on. There we go, we have a new badge.
It would appear our squat here is a little bit of a thrill seeker. According to his shoulder pad, he would like to be provided with some danger. Do you have any you could give him? For many years, I looked at the squat's hoverboard and I thought the art on it seemed familiar. It had a look to it that I'm sure I had seen somewhere before. Well, after a few years, I noticed the same art on some old Santa Cruz skateboard decks. The art style was the same. I knew I'd seen it somewhere. The name of the artist is Jim Phillips. I think he's a big deal in the skateboarding and surfing world. Some of his art is really nice, and I thoroughly recommend going to have a look at it yourself. I love his use of colour. Alright then everybody, there are 10 internet cookies up for grabs if you can tell us who or what this next image depicts. I think this is a great piece. So what you're looking at here is the original, and some might say best, design for the Tyranids. It doesn't look a million miles away from what we have these days, I guess. Although this version looks a little, how shall we say, funkier. I'm pretty sure that no official miniatures of this specific design were released. However, I do seem to recall some prototypes being made and loitering around the internet somewhere. I would imagine those are very pricey. Also, I think some third-party miniature creator has made some too, but I might have dreamt that. One of my favourite parts of this old design, also a trait that hasn't made its way into the current range, is the little eyeball on a stalk on the side of its head. Now saying it, I'm not sure it is an eye on that stalk, but that's just what everyone referred to it as. Over the years, I've looked at this picture and thought it had two front legs and one big webbed leg at the back. Also, I thought it had a weird radar-like growth on its back. I literally only now just realised that that radar isn't a radar, it's just the other back leg out to the side and it's not a tripod. I'm not sure how I never realised that. If it was just a single webbed foot and a radar back growth, it would have been like something out of the Thing movie with Kurt Russell. Those beasts had all sorts of random growths going on. Remember the dog's head with the tentacles that flew out? Weird.
Now the movie The Thing, I think, is bloody fantastic. I haven't however seen the newer prequel with Ewan McGregor's wife. Is that worth a watch?
This here reminds me of that criminal lineup scene from The Usual Suspects. Should we call it The Unusual Suspects? I like to consider myself a bit of a movie buff. I've seen most of the classics and cult favourites. However, I do have to admit to never watching The Usual Suspects. Just never gotten around to it, and it's never on TV or any of my streaming services. Have you ever seen it? Is it as good as they say it is? The gentleman on the far left at the front, with all the tattoos on his belly, looks a bit like Billy Bobbins, the previous owner of Andy the Knife. Long-time viewers of the channel will know who that is. The miner, just to the right of Billy Bobbins there with the full covering bodysuit on, has some very interesting knee pads. They look a bit like rotary telephone dials, don't they? Maybe you could use them to call Denise.
I'll get my coat.
At first I thought the vehicle on the far right was a Warhammer 40,000 universe version of a motorbike and sidecar. But it's just a jet bike with a wing. I guess you could sit on the wing like a sidecar perhaps. Also, the arrangement of it looks like these ski speeder things from the crate scene in The Last Jedi, and the less said about that movie, the better. The guy riding on the wing of the jet bike not only reminds me of a cartoon Freddie Mercury, but also has an interesting t-shirt, declaring his allegiance to the Blue Nose Gang. I've never heard of this gang before, so if you know who that is, then please let us all know in the comments below. Okay, so this was another picture that I had a lot to say about, but the image file has corrupted and I have no idea what it was, and I didn't have a backup, so it's gone. Let's move on, shall we? If I had to sum this picture up, I would describe it as a Marine watches a Nebulon B medical frigate from Star Wars getting built on top of some skyscrapers in New York. The Space Marine on the right looks a lot like he's wearing Mark V Heresy pattern armour. That in itself is interesting, as Mark V wasn't a thing until a bit later on in Warhammer 40,000's lifespan. Maybe they just based the armour mark off these old pieces of art. It makes sense, I suppose. Now, most Mark VI wearing Space Marines have a pronounced tip to their helmets, hence the name Beakies. The Marine on the left, however, has quite a short, stubby beak. Is this a perspective or just a weird interpretation of it? Whatever the case may be, I quite like it. Now, Marines are well known for their use of chainswords, and these guys have them too. This time around, the chainswords look very strange. Not your typical look at all. They look a little bit like an AI representation of one, and I have to admit I like this look. The chainswords both have some sort of dial or gauge on them. I wonder if this is to indicate the speed of the chain rotation or how much torque is applied. I suppose it's also possible they're just built-in clocks. Halfway down the side of the building is a little floating vehicle. This one looks a lot like one of those deep-sea submersible vehicles. God knows why anyone would ever want to go for a ride in one of those. Frightening stuff. Also, remember Sequest DSV? What happened to that? I really like this next piece of art. This piece depicts a battle, as is common for Warhammer 40,000. A battle between Space Marines and their usual enemy at the time, the Orks. As is typical of most Space Marines in this era, the Marines are wearing Mark VI armour. Usually, they have a logo or emblem on them, indicating which chapter they belong to. But sadly this time, I can't see anything. Do you see any clues anywhere? What chapter would you say this is? The Space Marine at the front with no helmet looks a bit miserable. He looks a mess. He actually looks like he might already be dead, but some sort of combat drug is keeping him going just that little bit longer. Also, I can't tell where his helmet ends and his scalp begins. It's very odd. Now, I don't know if it's my eyes that are deceiving me, but it looks like there's a weapon up a tree there. Who would mount their weapon in a tree? A sniper, perhaps? Just below that weapon is what I think is a dead body hanging from the same tree. Maybe he failed when he tried branching out.
I'll get my coat again.
The orc in the middle of the picture, which might even be a Gretchen now I think about it, looks a lot like one of the goblins from the Labyrinth movie, hanging about with David Bowie in his castle.
Now, I think we've said it a few times in these videos that we believe Labyrinth was set in the warp. It is very Zinchy, isn't it, that movie? Not sure what the waves involved though. There was no surfing in it.
Oh, look out, it's Mr Nutz, that squirrel character from the old PlayStation 1 game. If I remember correctly, it was supposed to be absolutely terrible. I never played it, but I bet one of you guys did. So this is what is known in these parts as a flying squirrel. Well, it looks like one. A lot like a normal squirrel, except they have that membrane thing between their legs that catches the air when they jump, like a wingsuit. The other animal I think with the wingsuit arms are what I believe are called sugar gliders. I've seen them for sale occasionally at our local pet shop. They don't really seem the type of thing you want to be keeping in a cage though. I'm no sugar glider expert, so I can't really comment. Now, after staring at this beaver for a while, I can't work out if the face is a smiling, happy expression or an evil, angry expression. What do you think? Is it an angry or a nice beaver? So the reason we're now referring to it as a beaver is because of that tail. It looks a bit too big, wide and flat to be a squirrel tail. Although thinking about it, don't beavers have hard tails? I might need to Google beavers now, hold on. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend Googling that. Also, people eat beaver tail. It looks bloody disgusting. So in universe, this isn't a beaver, nor is it your run-of-the-mill squirrel. It's actually a terror squirrel. Apparently they're bloodsuckers. A bit like the giant vampire bats in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. A fantastic scene. We welcome you back now to today's coverage of the Manx TT, a race everybody has heard of but never seen. Are any of you motorbike fans? Can you tell us about the Manx TT? I've heard it's very dangerous. We have here what seem to be Warhammer 40,000 versions of the police. I think they're referred to as Adeptus Arbites nowadays, or is there something a little bit more police-like? Also, they're using Jetbikes, which are supposed to be rare in the setting, but everybody seems to be using them in these times. So these coppers, on their Jetbikes, do you think they're racing each other for the lols, or do you think they're chasing a criminal? We don't really get any clues either way, so it's up to you and your imagination. These cyclists must be making one hell of a racket, because all of the townsfolk are hanging out of their windows to watch the show. I think this is a clue that the Rozzers are indeed chasing someone and not just racing each other, maybe. The shape of the Jetbikes remind me of killer whales, or orcas as I believe their proper name is. I think it's probably a combination of the bike colour and the round bulbous shapes of them. I think the Marines in 2nd edition Epic had bikes with this shape, although those ones had wheels. Usually we see weapons on Jetbikes. Some sort of twin-linked bolter arrangement around the front wheel or front fairing, but these ones have no visible weapons. Maybe those inlets on the fairing are actually weapon outlets. Who knows?
I would like to see these Jetbikes in miniature form. I think that would be quite fun. Now, speaking of fun, if you're enjoying this video, then please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. That means you, Duncan. If you are enjoying the content on the channel, then please consider joining us on Patreon, the link to which is in the description below, or up here somewhere. Or you could even become a channel member, which is becoming all the rage these days. Again, there's a link to that in the description below. Anyway, that's enough e-begging. Let's continue on.
This here is a very famous piece. It came from the original Rogue Trader rulebook. What we have here on the right is what I believe to be an early version of a Sister of Battle, one of the Adepta Sororitas. They don't look too dissimilar to how they look today, do they? On the left side of the picture is a Marine of a famous, or should I say infamous, chapter, the Rainbow Warriors. I've always liked these guys, but never done anything with them, maybe the odd Marine here and there. It's been the topic of discussion for many years as to why this battle sister would be attacking or attacked by a loyalist Space Marine, unless he's not a loyalist. There is perhaps another clue in the picture which might explain why the battle is happening. The sister has the name Sister Sin on her shoulder pad. Could this mean she's been corrupted? Is she a renegade battle sister? Do Chaos Adepta Sororitas even exist? It's interesting to think about. Now the Rainbow Warrior has a nameplate, and that name is Brother Vermilion. Do you think this is a nod to Captain Scarlet? I think so. Vermilion, Scarlet, Rainbow and Spectrum. There's some interesting connections there.
Some awesome artwork there. If you want to see some more Oldhammer themed artwork, then check out the playlist up here somewhere. And as always, thank you very much for watching.